Hello and welcome to Tuesday Newsday, your #1 resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. Quest 2 gets 2 big updates that I've been seriously waiting for a long time. Finally, more information on the crazy Pimax 12K, and then there's Taco VR, this really cool open source omni-directional treadmill that I want to talk about. All that and so much more, let's just get right into the news. GDC just occurred this past week, and one of the biggest things I heard from the entire event was all about the PSVR 2. Even though the newly revealed headset wasn't fully on display, plenty of people did at some point get a demo using the device recently, whether at GDC or within the reported thousands of dev kits sent out by Sony recently. With reactions like this, had one of those VR moments today playing with the new PSVR 2. You know, where the world just feels different when you return? Well, not really a fan of blindly hyping things, but PSVR 2 is looking to be really good, as reactions from colleagues have been extremely positive. We did, however, get some more information on PSVR 2 from GDC, mainly at a Unity panel talking about eye tracking and its implementation within VR. A couple of demos displayed foveated rendering technology providing up to 3.6 times faster performance. Looks like in the upcoming years, we're finally going to see foveated rendering really lower some of the hardware restrictions to squeeze better performance or visuals out of more power-efficient hardware. Also, within this panel, Android Central talked about gameplay or UI opportunities with PSVR's eye tracking. From developers being able to tell when a player is looking at an NPC, or when a player blinks, or even change VR UIs to be eye tracking based rather than laser based from your hand. PSVR 2 is definitely heating up, and I'm pretty excited for it. Most recent information leading to a Q1 2023 release, and I've got my eyes on it. Another really interesting, almost creepy looking bit of news from GDC has to be these new VR gloves from MANUS, promising hyper-accurate finger tracking called the MANUS Quantum METAGLOVE. Using a magnetic base with magnetic field sensors, these new gloves bring much cleaner finger tracking than most other methods, and completely mitigate the problem of occlusion like you have with most typical camera-based hand tracking. Road to VR says that while the system was not perfect, the poses shown do look pretty impressive. These, of course, are basically enterprise only, and carry the incredibly steep price of $9,000 per set, but I did find the video of the demo to be particularly interesting, and almost a little uncanny. And while MANUS is very much so focused on enterprise applications right now, they did state that they aim to bring devices like this to the consumer level once they can get the cost of custom parts and manufacturing down significantly. And now on to the Quest news. We've been watching this slow transition from the Quest being called the Oculus Quest 2 to being the Meta Quest 2, but a recent tweet shows that we may be seeing the very first Meta branded Quest 2s hit shelves soon, dropping the Oculus logo for the Meta logo entirely. So maybe your Oculus branded device will turn into some sort of piece of VR history before you know it. Maybe eventually Meta branded Quest 2s will outnumber Oculus ones, which is kind of crazy to think about. But regardless of that, sort of separate from the newest V38 update, 2 big things have me pretty pumped in general. The first one is something that I've been practically begging for a long time from Quest. Recording content or gameplay on Quest or Quest 2 has always been a massive pain. Right now, if you want to record or stream gameplay footage from a Quest, you'll be getting a square aspect ratio in a very low resolution, practically making most of the footage kind of unusable, especially in a standard 16:9 aspect ratio video like the one you're watching right now. There are, of course, ways to get around this using SideQuest or ADB commands, or just using Air or Quest Link, but really, it should be easier for people to make content and stream with the Quest 2 and make content in a more standard aspect ratio and resolution, which is why I'm excited for new tools coming in April or May launch, according to an Oculus product manager, stating that the chances are high that in April or at the latest May, new tools will launch. And I'm almost positive that if Meta are reworking capture tools, that a standard 16:9 aspect ratio recording mode would be just about mandatory. And this does more for VR than just allow for better recording. It kind of opens the gate for more people to make better VR related content in general easier. And I'd probably actually use the Quest 2 a lot more if I could properly record or stream gameplay from it. So I'm looking forward to these new tools greatly. The next thing is actually even more exciting, especially for airlink users. We've had something called asynchronous space warp for a long time now. It's a technology that intelligently fills in missing frames while in VR. To put it very simply, if your computer is dropping frames or you're just having low frame rates in general while playing VR games, ASW renders those extra frames so you can have a smoother experience. This was massively improved with ASW 2.0 not that long ago, but it really doesn't do much if you're using Airlink Airlink over Wi-Fi, and for some reason you have a less than optimal Wi-Fi configuration or lots of Wi-Fi interference and Wi-Fi isn't great. Like I said, ASW 2.0 or an even better 3.0 wouldn't help you at all. And that's where this new experimental feature really comes into help, called AFI, or Airlink Frame Rate Insurance. Playing games over Wi-Fi is awesome and works pretty well, but it's still not perfect. If there is some sort of connection issue or lots of Wi-Fi traffic or interference, Airlink itself can introduce a lot of artifacting or dropped frames, and that leads to motion sickness or bad VR experiences. AFI does a similar thing to asynchronous space warp, except it's all localized on the Quest 2 itself, filling in dropped or artifacted frames due to intermittent Wi-Fi connections, pretty much immediately making your Wi-Fi experience far better with Airlink. Starting right now using the Oculus debug tool, you can enable frame rate insurance as long as your headset and Oculus app are both on V38 or higher. It should be known though that this is an experimental feature and has a few bugs, like 120 Hz is not supported, but if you are having Wi-Fi issues, I can see this feature growing and developing to make VR streaming better and better, and it's something that you can do right now to make your experience even a little bit better. Not everyone can control their Wi-Fi at any given time, so yeah, this is great. And there's another quick bit of meta VR news, but first it's time for a meme break! Looks like the #1 app listed on the new and updated apps we love on the Oculus App Store is Oculus's own Horizon Workrooms. Nice. And now, back to the news, which ironically has to do with Horizon. I've historically made fun of Horizon quite a bit for its weird lack of features and odd moderation policies, but there's still money to be made. Meta mentioned a while ago that they've started a $10 million creator fund to attract developers to build within Horizon, but more recently they've offered up more than $500,000 in funding and cash prizes to program developers creating unique, innovative, and engaging worlds in Horizon Worlds, presenting the Builders Tracks course to teach creators to use the platform and compete for prizes. Pretty cool if that's a thing for you. And maybe because of this, we'll see some really cool stuff come out of Horizon. One of the most exciting and weird VR headsets to be announced in the past few years has been the Pimax 12K, a super high-resolution, ultra-wide field of view VR headset from Pimax that honestly promises so much that it's kind of a little sus. 6K per eye, standalone and tethered PCVR function, laser-tracked and inside-out camera-tracked, zero distortion near full human eye field of view, even inside-out full body tracking. The headset honestly looks crazy, and if it does get released as promised, it'll probably be one of the most insane VR headsets ever released to consumers. But there has been some weird stuff like the headset not appearing at CES like promised earlier this year, and the promises themselves are so large that it's almost unbelievable. But some silence has been broken recently through a 3-hour interview with MRTV, breaking down what on the headset is ready right now and what isn't, just totally honestly. And according to the interview, basically the headset seems sort of almost ready with some of the features that were promised. As a basic PCVR headset, apparently the 12K is functional as of now and does work tethered, but many of the other features like Wi-Fi 6E and 60 GHz WiGig streaming aren't quite ready or polished, with Wi-Fi 6E connectivity being the biggest bottleneck right now, which makes sense. The 12K promises 6K resolution at an insane 240-degree field of view at 200 Hz, which seems like quite the stretch to get even close to that over Wi-Fi 6E. As of now, the Pimax 12K seems like a functional piece of hardware with a lot of questions, especially considering this device is supposed to launch later this year. For example, the laser tracking faceplate doesn't seem to be a certainty at launch. Wireless is up in the air, and we haven't seen through the lens footage to back up the zero distortion claim. And a new item, the Pimax box, a separate compute unit, was shown during the interview, sort of allowing the Pimax to be used wirelessly with a console-like box as a compute station, which sounds awesome, but there are just a lot of claims here. Overall, I'm still super excited about the Pimax 12K. I just definitely have to see a unit up close and personal before I get too excited, I guess. Pimax did mention possibly getting an in-person demo with me in the next few months and that I'd be able to share it with everybody, so hopefully we can organize that sometime soon. I'm just proceeding with cautious optimism regarding the 12K. Between the aspheric combo lens, standalone and PCVR capability, eye tracking, built-in full-body tracking, my interest is peaked, obviously. I just have to see if it delivers. Two things I've come to love about VR are omni-directional treadmills and the amazing open source crowd, and two of those have come together with probably one of my favorite project names ever, the VR Taco. Using an Infento base, the creator posted a blog showing the system and how it would be used to take steps and translate them into a VR atmosphere. So you can pretty much VR even in a tiny play space, but it feels like you're in a massive, never-ending play space using your legs to walk. VR Taco isn't complete by any means, still needing a lot of prototyping including motors, software implementation, and more, but the groundwork has been laid for a really cool project with a funny name. All in all, looks cool, and it's something that I'd love to see fleshed out into a more complete project in the future. The augmented reality world is getting pretty spicy right now with a few big acquisitions. Google recently has acquired Raxium, a micro OLED display startup, for an ongoing AR glasses project. And I find this particularly interesting because Google is likely in the middle of a change of strategy. Initially, from wanting to be the software platform AR and VR run on to being an upcoming hardware platform as well. A quote from The Information: "Google has realized that you can't just own the operating system," end quote. Micro OLED really is the massive rush right now across the industry for AR and VR. It's high resolution, good colors, small size, power efficient, it just makes sense in all ways. Another interesting acquisition was Snap buying a brain-computer interface company NextMind, which, if you've watched my channel for a long period of time, may sound sort of familiar, as I made a virtually odd on a VR BCI that they made a couple years back. That BCI has since been discontinued, as they will work with Snap in the future, likely with projects related to the Snapchat spectacles. But now it's time for question of the week from Wesley. If VR is addictive, should we consider tolerance breaks? Do you think we would eventually lose touch with reality if left without baseline for so long? Well, I kind of used to do this anyways. I would get really into VR for a few months, then take a break for a couple months, and then when I hopped back into VR, it would feel fresh and new again. But regarding losing baseline reality, that's kind of a complex question. People do tend to get really lost in social VR, almost to a scary point, where social VR becomes almost a more important reality. So I could see as VR advances, people get more and more lost into VR. But if you think about it, we kind of already have this altered baseline reality with social media and the internet as is. You know, perception is reality, of course. So I see it far more likely that VR will just become a part of people's baseline reality, if that makes sense. Actually, that's a really interesting topic that I probably will dive way deeper into later. But for now, that's question of the week, so make sure to leave your own down below and I may just answer yours next. Join up in my Discord community if you want to join an awesome VR community and get notifications for all sorts of new VR stuff. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. I couldn't do any of this without you. And don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.